2, 1. Okay, let's make sure it's on.
It says it's live now. Let's see.
May have to refresh.
There we go. It's on. Okay, good. Good. Thank goodness, you guys. We were here earlier today and we had this wonderful, lively, like over 30-minute conversation with you guys. And then later found out it never made it to the page because of a tech problem, tech fail.
Right.
And so we're back again tonight. Sorry for you guys if you were waiting at that time that we had scheduled, but we did want to come back on and tackle this topic of relationship change and how it's not logical. So welcome to this. And if you're live, please go ahead and ask questions and we'll get to them at the end, or afterwards we'll go through if we have time. And we'll just dive right in, you guys. We're really glad to be back. I'm with Ned and Kelly Vandiver, if you guys have not met before, from the Relationship Loft. They are amazing and they are passionate about this topic just like I am. The nature of relationship transformation and how expansive it is and how it's really beyond this sort of mechanical, linear, logical way of thinking that a lot of people think about this process as. And it's really a problem for people because it's a paradigm issue. When people run into problems that are actually a sign that things are going really well, in the old paradigm, it feels like something is not working. So then people get really frustrated.
Yeah.
What I always say is that building a relationship and a new foundation, it's not like building a car or building a house, right? It's more than the sum of its parts. It's not a mechanical thing that you can just take step by step and then you're done, right?
Right.
It involves our psyches, it involves our spirits, and it's just a messy process. So we're going to break this down today. We're going to talk about why transforming your marriage is not a logical process, and how it's really essentially a spiritual process. Even if you don't see it that way or you don't consider yourself a spiritual person, there is a spiritual element to it.
There is.
We're going to talk about the common ways that this derails the old way of thinking, derails transformation in a marriage. And we're going to propose a shift in thinking that we think will help you guys if you're working on your marriage and you're finding yourself stuck. So the number one thing, and we talked about this earlier, we're going to talk about 4 reasons why radical relationship change is not logical. And the first one is because it's essentially not realistic, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's not realistic because if you think about it, it's never realistic to believe in a future that the current reality doesn't support.
Right. Yeah.
And realistic essentially means using what's real now to decide what's possible in the future.
Yeah.
And working within the confines of what the past has created.
Right.
And you can't do that within that.
Right. And like you're saying, a huge, part of the population, huge number of the population, that's the way we perceive things though, from outside, as opposed to from inside out. So, we look at things from the circumstance, from the condition, and we assume that that's the way it is. And we don't have any control over that, Yeah.
Totally. And we get dependent on the conditions. Like if the conditions are right, then I'll feel good about it. Or that will mean that things are going well, rather than creating that on the inside first.
Yeah.
And what I was saying earlier too. Oh, I'm sorry. What were you going to say, Kelly?
No, I was just going to say it came to me and then it left.
All right. It'll come back.
All right.
But you know how we were talking earlier about how the present moment and what is real now is really just the residue of the past.
Right.
Just the leftovers, the emotional responses, the triggers, the habits that we're in with our partner, the way that we react to each other. Whatever you're looking at right now, it really is just the outcome of past habits.
Yep.
So in that way, if you stay focused on what's realistic or what's happening now, you're never going to be able to create anything new.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't allow for change.
Yeah, we refer to that as baggage.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we call that. So in
order you don't want to use that as a yardstick for what's possible in the future.
Exactly. Yeah.
You never want to work from circumstance.
Right.
When you work from circumstance, right, you just keep creating the same circumstance over and over. You have to work from a very different place. If what you want is change, and like what I talked about earlier, that space that exists between where you are and where you want to be in your relationship, in any area of your life, that space between the two is the part that is an illusion in a sense, but it's the part that is really hard for most people, because in order to get where you want to get, it's almost like stepping into, not almost, but it's like stepping into an identity that's not even yours.
Yeah.
You're literally taking yourself
Mhm.
and stepping into this completely new person.
Mhm.
And in order to step into that, there are rules that come along with it. Ned and I were talking about this. There are rules to wearing that super suit.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And part of it is staying as positive as possible, and as much the master of your own mind as possible at all times, and being in as much control as you possibly can be of your emotions. Because when you stop and you look with your eyes and your five senses as to, okay, what is in my reality right now, if it still hasn't made the shift yet, or a shift yet, it can really take most people back.
Yeah.
So it's about
Yep.
having the ability to, use the modalities, use the healing tools, stay in a good feeling place, in a higher vibration long enough to where you can start to see some results. And that space that exists again between where you are and where you want to be, that's the part that's so hard.
Mm.
Yes, exactly. And don't you find that when you work with couples who have been having the same patterns for so long, like even 20 plus years, 25 plus years, it's really hard to let go of what you already know about your spouse, or what you think, it becomes such a habit that you just have to let that go and say, it doesn't even matter what is real. It doesn't even matter what happened yesterday or last week. The only way forward, the only way to create something new is to, completely step outside of what everything that you already know. It's like going into that beginner's mind almost.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, this is why it's such a spiritual process, because in a way you're just letting go of the tangibles that feel like that you can perceive, like you say, through your five senses that tell you what is real.
Right.
You cannot use that as your benchmark, or
No.
you'll just get more of the same over
Yeah.
and over again. And I think, I don't know why this felt like a revelation, and I've been doing this for a long time. And I feel like I'm surprised nobody's talking about that principle, at least in the relationship space. I feel like it's talked about in a lot of other areas of personal transformation.
Right. Yeah.
But to create a new story in your relationship, it's so important to just let that go. It doesn't matter. And it doesn't mean there's not healing.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it doesn't, matter what happened before, especially if you have a trauma history. Obviously, you have to deal with that.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's not an indication of where you can go and what's possible.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
That's the thing to remember.
Yeah. This is a whole new identity, a whole new vision. And this is about creating the habits that support that vision and that stepping into that identity. And people don't know this stuff. This stuff is not modeled for us when we're coming up, because usually our parents, they're young, they're in their 20s, they're in their 30s, and they're like going through their own stuff.
Yeah. They're doing a lot.
Not taught at school, not taught in our culture, but yet people think that they're supposed to make straight A's when they haven't studied. You know what I'm saying?
Right, exactly.
Like they haven't been practicing this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned vision, Kelly, because that's really the second thing I wanted to say about the process of transformation, and why it's not logical is because there's such a process of faith that it feeds off of, right? You have to have faith, and faith could be you have a faith in a higher power, that God, the universe, creative source of everything, or it could be as simple as holding a vision.
Right. Yeah.
And just the act of holding a vision that transcends the current reality that you're in,
Yeah.
and thinking that you can get there, is an act of faith.
It is. Yeah.
You wouldn't take the steps to get there if you didn't have faith that you could get there, or you would just give up, right?
Right. And for Kelly and I know it's been a spiritual journey before we met, while we've been together. The parts of you that you have to become aware of, we're talking about emotions, we're talking about your mentality, and these things are the intangibles, that
Yeah.
make up the things that a lot of people, I don't think they're really in touch with in terms of themselves, because we look so much outside of ourselves for what's relative and what's real. So the process of moving across that bridge and having that vision really gives you, it moves something inside of you that I don't think a lot of people get to experience, in terms of like having a North Star, having a healthy vision for your relationship. It begins to stir inside something inside of you, and it is very relevant to faith.
Yeah.
And, that is what you have to actually hold that. And
Yep.
begin the process of cultivating that vision.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because you might know what you want and you know why you want it, but you don't know how you're going to get there yet. And so you kind of surrender, and you surrender to the process and say,
Right.
okay, I'm just going to take one step at a time. That metaphor of the staircase, you can't see the whole way, but you just take one step at a time.
Exactly. Yeah.
One step at a time towards that vision.
We so often, as humans, right, especially depending on your trauma history, the more trauma, the more in control, right? We're holding on to this illusion of control.
Yeah.
Damn it.
What happened?
It left me again. What were we talking about?
Oh, we were just talking about, Jesus. She got me up here.
Monika, where was I?
We were talking about this staircase and how you can't see the whole way there.
Yeah.
We're talking about faith.
Wanting to see that, right? Wanting to know what the outcome is going to be, like wanting to control every little thing is controlling, right? And it's trying to grasp onto something that's not even real.
Right.
And it's
that's
really
why it's a spiritual process as well, because you're letting go of control.
Yeah.
And you're trusting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a key word too, that you said, trusting. And that's a new place for a lot of people. When you're anxiety ridden and on edge and not in a healthy place, not in a healthy mindset, you become very defensive and leery of everything around you.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
It is, and I know, I've been there, so I can identify. Yeah, I can identify with it wholeheartedly, and it's just, but once you can find a way to move beyond it, it opens up a whole new life, for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that you can't understand intellectually. It's something that you can only understand experientially.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's always that leap of faith in, like, well, I hope this works,
And you don't know that you know something until you know it.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Is that expression, to know and to not yet do is to not yet know.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you said it's experiential, it's living it, it's being it every single day. It's practice, right? Relationship practice. And it's a lifestyle. For sure.
And taking what comes, because the third thing I was going to say is, because it's not a logical process, it's not a linear process, it's not mechanical, you don't follow a straight line, it's organic, it's messy, it's creative, and you clarify through action. It's through the actions that you get clarity, whereas a lot of us want to have clarity first in our mind, in our head, before we take action.
Yeah.
But that kind of is, an outgrowth of the faith aspect, is that you're going to be taking action before you know the whole answer, and you're trusting that the clarity will come. It's not something that you can calculate or predict.
Right.
Measure certain aspects. Like, we talk about measuring, keeping track of the positive interactions in relation to the negative interactions, and you can grow the positive, expand the positive. Yeah. But beyond that, it's not a predictive model at all.
No. It's really truly about living from a different place. It's like stepping into that identity that is not you and being that person and playing that role. That becomes your new norm. And, you know, we all really, I think, struggle the most, again, with that space, that uncomfortable space between where you're at, where you want to be.
Yeah.
The more you can have already decided and made the decision first, and that's been key for me in anything.
Making the decision.
Yeah, has been, I'm going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
This is happening, freaking period. And
Come hell or high water, and I don't know
Yeah.
how yet, but I'm gonna do it.
But
Yeah.
I'm going to do this. I'm
Mhm.
figuring this out, and there's no other option for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it takes, because then once you decide, it raises your frequency. It's a law.
Mm-hmm.
So you decide, then once you make the decisions, what happens is you can start to see, you know, more clearly. You can start to see from a different lens and a different viewpoint, and you can
More
see
possibilities become available to you.
exactly.
You didn't
the
even see
possibilities become available.
Yeah, totally. And what you were saying about the comfort zone, or you know, that it's really uncomfortable, is so key, because we have these subconscious programs that want to keep us stuck, that want
Right.
us to stay, even though we might not like our comfort zone, which might be toxic, it might be dysfunctional, it might be full of pain. But if it's what we know, and if that's what the habit is, it's going to feel uncomfortable, even though you're making positive changes.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's really the fourth reason why I think that the transformation process is not logical, but more spiritual, is because it's not based in the present moment. You know, you're reacting from the past, which doesn't exist.
Exactly.
Right? When people get triggered and they start to react in a way where they don't want to be reacting, because they already intellectually know, oh, I'm not supposed to say this to my spouse. That's not right. I shouldn't make this passive aggressive comment, or I shouldn't slam the door, or I shouldn't just shut down.
Yeah.
I shouldn't yell. Whatever you know you're not supposed to do, logic is not strong enough when those programs are activated.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Terry, I think Terry refers to that, you know, when people are responding in that way, as being in the family business, you know, because that's what he said. He calls it that because, you know, that's
The
where,
whoosh, right?
yeah, and the
Over
orientation,
you.
you know, everything we
Yeah,
experienced,
all of-
you know,
all
the childhood
of-
stuff. That it's like he says, you're in the family business because you're doing exactly what was modeled for you.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. You cannot reason your way through these entrenched patterns and these habits.
No.
You have to be able to change. You have to go in and change the subconscious programs
Yep.
to support your conscious insights and
Yeah.
intentions. And if you don't change them, they will win.
Exactly.
And so that's why I think that people get stuck, because
It's hard.
they understand it logically, but then they fail, you know, because they're set up to fail if they think that that's going to be enough.
Well, I mean, just having the awareness to understand that you want to do something differently is one thing. But like you said, with the subconscious programming and the blueprint there, the lack of awareness is the thing that's so confusing for people.
Mhm.
It's you know, why am I doing this over and over again? Why am I doing this? And I don't want
Yeah.
to.
Right.
You know, it's that
Right, because you might later think, I should have done that. Next time I'm not going to do that. But
right,
then
yeah,
you have
and
to
what
do
they
that.
haven't, what you fail to realize is you haven't drawn the two hemispheres together. You're
Yes.
and your subconscious. They're not working together. You only have one working.
Mhm.
You know, and
Exactly.
it's the wrong one usually. You know.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's why this is when people are stuck in that logical mindset of thinking it should be this linear process. And if I understand it and I have the insight, which is the traditional therapy model, is insight based.
Okay.
Once I understand it, then I can fix it. And understanding it is like, people say understanding it is half the solution. I'd say it's less than half the solution. It's definitely a great start, but there's still a lot you have to do. And I think where people, they give up, they get really frustrated, right?
Yeah.
They're following the process for inside out change. They're trying to use the tools. They're reading all the books. They're really trying.
Yeah.
But then when they keep having setbacks because of that, they tend to get frustrated or throw in the towel, and they give up too soon, or they get confused. Like, wait, maybe this isn't the right thing to do. They're not even sure what the right thing is to do.
Right. Yeah. I was going to say, you said that earlier, that, you know, they think they're doing it wrong.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Right.
You know, and you know, you said earlier, you know, part of the growth is there's pain. in the growth, you know,
Mhm.
and it's going to hurt a little bit, probably a little more before it gets better,
Yeah.
and people have to understand that that's the process of
It's part of
it's
it.
part of the process. It's part of the work.
Yeah.
That's part of your growth and part of your expansion.
And that's what makes you stronger.
Yeah.
It's what
Mhm.
gives you the skills and the knowledge that you can never be taken away from you, is when there is that pain.
Yeah.
And then you actually get to the other side of it. That's something that we must accept.
Mhm.
Big word, acceptance.
And just if we can normalize that process, and if you understand this is how it actually works,
Right.
then when you encounter setbacks, you're not deterred, you're not thrown off, you're not confused. You understand this is just part of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And like, you're not gonna get it on the first try.
Mhm. And why do people think that they are?
Like,
I don't
It,
understand.
we
In
have
the
a
relationship
we have a convenience store kind of culture, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody's used to being
quick,
able to push a
fast.
button, get a quick fix, and they even look for you to you in terms of like how you can help or perform a miracle
Yeah,
for them
yeah.
sometimes too. And it's just like, no,
Why don't I have my miracle yet?
yeah,
It's your fault. And
yeah.
it's like, no,
It's
this
like
takes time.
it takes time, and it takes a lot of dedication and a lot of practice and a lot of work. And where you are right now, when as you're talking to these people, sometimes it's like you're where it's a very familiar place for a lot of people. The frustration, not feeling like you're getting anywhere. You have to stick with it. You have to push through and move through the threshold. And there's one there. I always tell people there's one there. It's gonna feel like this, but if you can
that means you're on the right
you're on the
path.
right path. Just stick with it and keep doing it, and you will get there and you will move through it.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the miracle really, and it feels like a miracle, is that the change happens from the inside out, that you become, with that vision that we were talking about earlier, when it becomes true for you, when your body is literally responding as though it's already true, you're living the new reality before it's real in your material world, before your partner starts changing, before your partner starts responding differently, before anything has actually changed outside of you, inside of you, you've gone to this other place. Once you do that, then you'll start to see the changes outside of you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And once people get that, they do feel like it's a miracle. And that's why that's a tagline in the couples care. It's a miraculous recovery for couples on the brink, because it's like, oh my God, I've been doing the same thing for 26 years and now it's completely different and now we don't fight anymore. That's a miracle. Like that is, it is. So this is why I really want to encourage people to have faith. It's not, you will get to the other side if you can embrace these principles. So I want to leave people with what to do about it. Like what's the shift? We sort of touched on it here a little bit, but there's just a few things that we can leave people with in terms of how to think about this and recommendations. Number one, as we were talking about earlier, and nobody heard us, is you have to be unrealistic if you're going to transform your marriage. You have to just embrace that. What I want is not real, and people might think I'm crazy for wanting it. But nothing ever great was created from the place of what is.
Right.
So you got to embrace being unrealistic and think big and have a really big vision first. Then you have to have faith in that vision and let go of the past and creating your future. Let go of the lenses of the past. If something happens in the present moment that reminds you of the past, you don't link it to the past. You look at it as just, this is what's happening in the present moment, and you focus 5% of your time and your mental energy on what's not working or what's bothering you, and 95% of your time on where am I going?
Right.
Where am I going, and what can I do to get, what's the next right step to move towards that vision?
Exactly.
And having faith. What else would you guys recommend?
I recommend a lot of things. But what I was going to say is, this is really about letting go of the lower quality ways of being, the really immature, sort of emotionally volatile ways of being, and taking on a more mature stance.
Yes.
And you have to replace
moving into the functional adult brain.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you have to replace these bad habits, because we don't get what we want. We don't get what we want in life. We get our habits, and we get what we practice every day.
Right.
We
And-
get who we are.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so you've got to be someone who embodies what it is you want in your partner. If you are not getting what you want from your partner, chances are you are not embodying what it is you're saying you want from them. First and foremost, you're not embodying it inside of yourself as a person,
Yeah.
as a human being that deserves your own recognition, your own love, and your own guidance.
Yeah.
First and
Yeah.
foremost. And your own love, your own attention, your own care. You've got one freaking physical human body, in mind, and it deserves, she or he deserves to be taken care of very well.
Right.
Yeah.
And, take care of yourself, take care of your body, take care of your mind.
That is such a good point. That whole idea of embodiment and being part of the change that you want to see. I'm going to actually be doing another live stream on this. The topic being, what is missing is what you're not giving. And that's going to be, there's so much to say about that too, because you absolutely have to be able to become that change. So
Right. Yeah.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. We're going to build on that next time. But for now, you guys, I just want to say, if you're still listening to this, there is a calling inside of you to have a healthy relationship. There is something, that has not given up yet, that wants that, and that is holding out for that hope. And I want to say, hang on to that, leverage that, do whatever you can, and try to embrace these principles, embrace the messiness, have faith, understand that it's not a linear process, and, take a stand, like what you were saying earlier, Kelly. Make that decision.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this, connect with your vision, focus on it every single day, and don't let the setbacks derail you.
Yeah. And really just open yourselves up to, I said before, open yourselves up to something new, something very different. And just, give it a chance. We sit in these places for so long and we feel so bad. Hope is not lost. This is why we're here, and this is why we talk about this stuff, because we've gone through it and we've gotten through it, and we're here to talk about it and share that experience. And so I'm just saying, it's there if you want it.
Oh,
yeah, absolutely.
It's there if you want it.
You remember what you were going to say?
I was going to say this last thing, and that is, because you were asking, what can you do about it, right? You've got to start paying attention to the way that you speak to yourself.
Yeah. And about your spouse.
Inside of yourself, you've got to start paying attention to the negative emotions that are in your head about yourself, about your husband. You got to start paying attention to these things, or your wife. Because most people are very negative. They are complaining internally incessantly. And complaining internally incessantly, it doesn't matter if you don't say it out loud, but if you're constantly being negative up here, it's never going to produce a positive result. The math doesn't even make sense there. The science doesn't make sense there. You can't produce something, your vision, your North Star, if you are stuck down in negative places, because your lens is just going to be yucky, cloudy, murky, gross.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so you got to start paying attention to that inner dialogue and not accept being down in those places of negativity, of talking bad about yourself, talking bad about your spouse. We have a rule when we work with people: you're not allowed to talk bad at all. At all. It's like against the rules. Unless you are doing it in a way that is like, okay, I notice that I do this.
Yeah, as long as you're observing and you're not fully identified with it. I recognize that this is happening.
Yeah. And you know what? I don't allow you, I'm just talking, this is how I will talk to a client. I'm not going to let you stay down there in that place of negativity, because I don't let myself stay there. So if I have to be positive and I have to do this work like this, you do too. And so staying in that place of victimhood, staying in that place of negativity constantly, if that's your focus and that is what you are meditating on is a bunch of negative crap, you're not going to get what you want. So start paying attention to how you're talking to yourself. And when people start doing this work and they're like, okay, let me do things different. Let me do things in the opposite way, than I normally would. And they do it, and it's great. And they have an emotionally corrective experience. But then the next time they slip up a little and then they start to beat themselves up and judge themselves for it. Don't judge yourself for messing up. Like, you're a human being,
Right. No judgment, but just observing and practicing that shifting and pivoting mentally.
Yeah.
To align with your vision.
Yeah.
Yes.
And apologizing when necessary and taking ownership of it and being the example of, hey, you know what? We're going to do this together and figure it out.
Yeah. Totally. And getting back to that faith place, faith in the process and faith in yourself too.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. And thanks you guys for tuning in. If you have any questions, please post them below and we will answer them. And if you guys want some support around this, if you're looking for a deeper dive, because maybe you understand some of this stuff, but you're really stuck and you want help applying it to your unique relationship, you can book a call at monikahoyt.com/talk and go right into my calendar, and we'll do a deep dive on what are the dynamics specific to your relationship, what are the barriers to making the change, and what would the next steps be for you, and just create a plan around transcending where you are to really get to where you want to go. So that's monikahoyt.com/talk. I'll put it in the comments below. We'll answer your questions, and then you guys have a wonderful weekend. Ned and Kelly, thank you so much. And then we'll we'll talk again in a month.
Okay.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.